Tighten up.
Yep.
I'm Dave Palumbo, founder of Species Nutrition. From my earliest bodybuilding days, I believed in only putting the best in my body. And that lives on in the Species Nutrition line of products. I put my name and reputation on every bottle of Species Nutrition products. If you want to be your absolute best, join the evolution.
Hey guys, we're super excited to be here at the LA Fit Expo. It's our third year in a row. And what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be launching the Tasty Pastry. It's a low-carb Pop-Tart. It's got 3 to 4 grams of net carbs. And we love this show. This is our best place to be in LA.
If you want to build a massive chest, you have to stop bench pressing right now.
Welcome to Heinz Senior's Coaching App. Get access to the P3AK High Intensity Training ebook and its exclusive video tutorials. Commit with Heinz's coaching right now and be provided with a year of meal plans, training programs, and more. www.p3akday.com. There is no room for the littles.
What's good, everyone? This is Tyler, your producer, in for Sid, who was just at a wedding overseas and now is sport announcing for an ACC tournament. So we'll be doing Ask Dave for you here. I got all the questions as usual, but before we get into that, Dave, I understand we got a heck of an Isolyze sale that just kicked off.
That's right, guys. You know I love to give you guys special deals, and I know you guys love discounts, and I know you guys love Isolyze protein. So we have some vanilla peanut butter flavor, which is my personal favorite, by the way. I actually stockpiled it before I actually made the sale available, but we have some that's expiring at the end of the month. So 3/31/22, that's the expiration date. And as we know, it doesn't go bad, but I can't sell it after that date. So we have about 170 units. It is going to go like that because we're selling it for almost half price, $24.99. Go to Species Nutrition right now and you can order it. If you spend more than $100, you get free shipping too. I know a lot of guys have been ordering it by the case and it's going very fast. We had about 200 units. We're down 30 units already since we actually just started the show. So I don't know if there's going to be any left. I hope there is for you guys. Check it out at speciesnutrition.com. Special sale while supplies last.
So get that Isolyze while it lasts. Let's hop right into those questions, as always, starting with the Dave Palumbo Experience app. First question from them: what lab tests should a female check during and after a medium cycle?
You know, a lot of people ask me this, and the truth is that the blood tests for women and men are pretty much exactly the same. You know, there's really no extra test that I recommend that women get that men shouldn't get. Obviously, diagnostically speaking, you know, women need to get a mammogram, which men don't need to get, and stuff like that. But as far as blood work goes, it's pretty standard. You know, I give out a big sheet of like what blood work I think people should get on a regular basis, and I'm happy to send it to anyone who reaches out to me. Basically, you want to go for the basic metabolic panel, which goes over the liver function, kidney function, electrolytes. You want to do a CBC, which is all your blood, red blood cells, white blood cells, the breakdown of all that stuff, hemoglobin, hematocrit. You want to do, I like to do hormone panel, which is testosterone, which is total testosterone, free testosterone, estradiol, which is basically estrogen. You know, that's the most prevalent estrogen metabolite. And then, of course, you also want to do DHT, which is dihydrotestosterone. For a woman, you might want to check DHEA too, which is your adrenal androgens. That's what women produce their testosterone from, just to see how that is doing. Obviously, I like to test in men also prolactin, because sometimes like trenbolone and Deca will raise prolactin levels, so I want to see if that's too high. I also like to do C-reactive protein, which is total body inflammation. I like to do hemoglobin A1C, which is an average blood sugar over 3-month period. So you can see if you're running high blood sugars or not. And then there's a lot of other little ones you can do too. If you think you're gluten insensitive, you could always test for, you know, a gluten allergy. Those are kind of extra, you know, things. You're going to probably get a urinalysis done too, just to see if your blood sugar is good and you're not peeing any glucose, obviously, but you can tell that from blood work. You want to make sure you're not dumping tons of, you know, protein into the blood, into the urine. Although when you work out really hard, you do leak some protein into your urine, so that's not unusual to see for a top-level bodybuilder or a person who has a lot of muscle on their body. And then, of course, a thyroid panel is always good. TSH, free T3, free T4, and to see if you're producing adequate amounts of these hormones. And there's really not, like I said, you can do a lot of little esoteric things if you want to test IGF-1 to see if if your body's producing GH, or if you're taking GH to see if it's actually resulting in an IGF-1 release. You'd have to do that test if you want to be real accurate about 3 hours after you take your GH test, your GH shot. You would want to go get tested. And once again, that's something that's not necessary, but a lot of people like to know how they're doing in that sense. So, I mean, those are the basics. I mean, there was a couple more maybe that kind of like slipped my mind. Obviously, going to test your iron and your ferritin levels to make sure you don't have an iron overload disease or anything like that. That's part of the basic metabolic panel usually. And once again, a lot of people send me their blood work to take a look at. If it comes back really bad and I need to do a consultation with you, you could always sign up for that. If not, I'm more than happy to take a look at your blood work.
Second question, again from the DPE app. I have a 10-year-old boy. Any tips or some kind of healthy diet for my son that age?
I struggle with this. I have young kids. I have a 2 and a 4 and a 6-year-old. And I'm always like, I always want them to eat healthy. And, I try to do little tricks. I feed them protein bars, and my wife will make them smoothies with our Isolyze protein. Because, if left up to their own volition, they'll just eat junk food all day long. And my youngest one is the worst eater of all time. We're finally getting her to eat some yogurt. You have to play tricks, because kids' taste buds change really, as they get older. My son, who's 6 now, he's a picky eater, but he eats now, and he likes to go to restaurants. So when I go to restaurants, I'll get him to eat like healthier foods there. As long as he has that little enticement of a dessert at the end of it. So eating is tough because kids will eat what you present them with, but at the same time, sometimes kids are really stubborn, and you gotta just try to find tricks that high protein foods. I try to give them like I said, protein bars that have high protein content, but that maybe taste good. Power Crunch bars taste pretty good. They don't really, I like them better than they do, but they will eat the Think bars. And because if you've seen those keto Think bars, they're pretty good. And they love the legendary foods like Pop-Tarts, which are tasty pastries, they call them. My kids devour those. Mr. G has his protein cookies. They really like that. And I don't mind if they're getting a little bit of sugar as long as they're getting some protein in their diet, and that's important. Of course, supplement-wise, it's hard. There's a million kids' vitamins out there. Most of them suck, to be honest with you. I actually might come out with my own chewable kids' vitamin that actually have some real ingredients in there. I've tried different. Life Extension has a pretty good kids vitamin. It tastes kind of fruity, and it's a chewable, but it does have really good dosages of stuff, so you might want to try that as well.
And don't forget schoolyard snacks, the cereal and those Cheetos. Kind of copy those. Those are good.
Yeah, those are very good. Yeah, they're almost too healthy for my kids. They don't like them.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they don't like them.
Oh, they fool me.
Yeah, I like them.
Okay, let's head over to Instagram. Right before we do that, though, we have a little in-house planted question that I'm sure the viewers will like to hear an answer to. I saw Lee Priest's progress pics on the Species IG. Why did you think signing Lee to Species was a good idea?
It's funny because Lee's texting me now. He's having a nervous breakdown. He said I made him send me start pictures because we're going to do a 16-week transformation with Lee Priest, and Chris Aceto's doing his diet. Obviously, I'm providing the nutritional supplements. And so he gave me some start pictures, and I put them up. And he's like, "You put them up?" I said, "What do you think I was going to do with them?" He's like, "Muscle Tech would put them up at the end of the transformation." I'm like, "I got to show you progress." The reason we signed Lee is, number one, I really like Lee a lot, and I consider him a very good friend of mine, and I see eye to eye with him. We view the world very similarly in a lot of things, and he's a no bullshit guy. He's very honest, and I think you might not like what he has to say, but he tells the truth. And I think that was very important to me. I wanted to have someone who was going to represent Species, who people trusted. If they said that they did something, they did it. He's incapable of lying. He has that like radical honesty type of thing going on, which is sometimes gets him in trouble because he says what's on his mind. And I respect that about him. And I always told him, I said, I'll never censor you and say you can't say something, because I value our friendship and our relationship. And so he had expressed that, I had sent him some Fiberlyze because he was having trouble going to the bathroom. And he's like, "This stuff really works. This is amazing." I said, I spend a lot of time researching these products and putting out the best products. And he's like, send me. And so I sent him a couple other things. And he's like, "Dave, I'm working with a company now, but I'm really not that happy. They don't really utilize me much. I don't use their products a lot. I like your products. He's like, if you want to do something ever together, I would love to work and represent the company because I could really get behind these products. I'm using them now. I like them. I'm seeing good results. And I have no problem advocating them to people because I do believe in what you're doing. And so, that's how relationships form. And, we both, we're seeing things from the same perspective. And so I said, you know what? This is a good sign. Lee is a very popular guy. People listen to him. He tells the truth and he likes the products and he's using them. That's the most important thing to me. And that's where that came from.
And there you have it. Now moving on to the actual Instagram questions. Michael J. Morris. Why don't we hear anything about androsterone like we used to when Jose Canseco used it? I hope I'm saying that right. It was available at GNC.
Androstenedione. That's what Tyler's talking about. Back in the, I think it might have been all the way back to the 90s, late 90s, because I was still working for Metrics at the time. And Patrick Arnold came out with a product called androstenedione, which was a precursor to testosterone. So in the body, androstenedione converts to testosterone. It also converts to estrogen, unfortunately. But Patrick said, this is not an illegal substance. It's a precursor. So he put out a product line, and he actually partnered up with Scott Conley at Metrics. I think the name of the company was Substrates. And they were releasing really high potency androstenedione products that Patrick was synthesizing in his lab himself. And then they found that 19 norandrostenedione was a better product because it didn't really convert to estrogen very much. And it almost converted to like a nandrolone-like compound. And they were selling that. That was actually a much better product. And so there was like 4 or 5 different versions of these pro hormones that were out there, and they were working. People were putting on muscle from them, and they were really good. And I guess then Canseco got popped for taking steroids, and he blamed androstenedione. I think Mark McGuire did too, because it was legal. They're like, and there was no rules or no laws out there that said you can't use supplements as an excuse. That came afterwards. So these guys said, hey, we're just using legal supplements. And I don't think they were. I think they were taking anabolics, but they used that as the excuse. So the government banned those pro hormones. And the problem was they would put like androstenedione and norandrostenedione on the list of banned substances, and then they would just tweak the molecule and make something else. And this went on for 15 years. Just recently, they banned all pro hormones and its derivatives. So you can't say, oh, look, I made this new one and it's not on the list. That's not a good excuse anymore. So basically what happened was they banned them, and so people couldn't sell them anymore. Now, people still did sell them, and they got in trouble. I mean, that's really what happened with Blackstone Labs and Aaron Singerman and PJ Braun. They were selling mislabeled supplements that actually had pro hormones in them, and can't do that, obviously.
No, you cannot. And moving on to Chris Angeletti. What is the best, this is a quick hitter you might have answered before. What's the best way to hit your macros when it comes to weighing your food? Is cooked more accurate versus uncooked and scaled?
Yeah, with protein, it's always cooked. With carb sources, I tell people, it's hard for me to give you a measurement because different rice boxes, whether it's minute rice or long grain rice or a regular rice that you have to cook for 20 minutes, they all have different carb content. So you got to read the box. So if the box says a half a cup uncooked equals 45 grams of carbs, then that's what you go by. Okay. If I tell you as a coach, I want you to eat 45 grams of carbs, then you got to look on the box and see how you make 45 grams of carbs work. So it doesn't have anything to do with adding water, or it's just the dry weight according to the box and what it is. Now, potatoes have about 4.5 grams of carbs per ounce. So if, let's say, you wanted to do 45 grams of carbs of potatoes, you would eat 10 ounces before you cook it, before it's cooked. You don't really lose that much weight on a baked potato. So, but protein, you definitely lose weight on when you cook it, because a lot of times if there's fat in there, it cooks off and you'll lose that. So I always tell people for like chicken breast and beef and fish, weigh it after you cook it.
Let's see. This is more of a suggestion than a question.
Okay.
Reverend Rob, if you're in Vegas, you should get on Jay's new podcast.
I could be on Jay's podcast without being in Vegas if he ever wanted me to. I don't travel. I haven't traveled for 2 years, actually, so, and I still got COVID. So figure that one out. Now, the reason I really haven't traveled recently is because I have 3 kids and it's really hard. My wife and I run all the businesses ourselves, and, we got to pick kids up from school. They got soccer practice. My son has MMA. It's tough. It's tough for me to get away for, 3-4 days. If it was a 1-day type of situation, I can do it. And I'm sure in the future, once my kids are all in elementary school or middle school, because my 2 youngest are still in kids world, which is nursery school. Once they're all in regular school, it might be a little easier for me to travel. But right now, family first.
Probably going to butcher these drug names. Thoughts on from JJ Nasuti. Thoughts on laxogenin, Chinese Smilax, as a muscle building agent for natural bodybuilders?
Yeah, laxogenin. Yeah, these plant sterols have been around for years. Bill Phillips, when he launched Muscle Media 2000, put the kibosh on all these plant sterols that people were selling as precursors to testosterone. And they used to sell sarsaparilla root was the big thing when I first started back in the late 80s and early 90s, because they synthesize testosterone from this sarsaparilla root. They must use some kind of a chemical base, and then they change it and they alter it into testosterone. So people, of course, said, well, if it's made from that, then the sarsaparilla root must have testosterone in it, which it doesn't. And they used to sell that for a lot of money. It was basically complete BS. And a lot of these plant sterols that they show these weird esoteric studies on, they don't build any muscle. I promise you they don't build any muscle. Don't waste your money on stuff like this. And I don't care who gets mad at me, what YouTuber who's selling the fucking shit and wants me to, and is mad that I'm putting it down. Prove to me that it builds muscle. It doesn't build muscle. These things are a waste of money. Stick with your multivitamin, multimineral, essential fatty acids, fiber. Use stuff that is actually useful. Whey protein isolate. People waste their money on so much crap, and then they don't have the funds to buy the stuff that they really do need. They're taking laxogenin and sarsaparilla root, and they're not even buying enough protein to build any muscle because they have no money left after wasting it on all these esoteric supplements that do nothing. And it's not, I don't like shysters and people who sell snake oil, Sell stuff that people need and that have research behind it. And I'll be the first person to pat you on the back. Did pro hormones work? Yeah, they work. That's why people bought them and continue to buy them and spend a lot of money on them. Okay? But they were deemed illegal, so you can't sell them anymore. That's the sad truth. GHB used to be sold in health food stores, okay? People used it because it worked. It released GH. It made you high if that's what you were looking for. It helped you sleep at night. They took it off the marketplace. I remember when my second generation Lipolyze product, we used T2, which was a thyroid metabolite. It was legal at the time. It burned fat. It worked. I had to pull it off the market because they made it illegal at some point. That's the way it goes. There are products that work and there are products that don't work. The problem is when there's a lull in the industry because there's not a lot of sexy products around because all the pro hormones were pulled off. These weird esoteric, things pop up and people see an opportunity to make money on it. A lot of times you'll see them named as steroids. You'll see names like Anavar that's close to Anavar or Anapar, or you'll see Stanazil or something like that. They'll take names and kind of twist it to make it sound like it's Winstrol, make it sound like it's Anavar, and people just automatically assume, well, it probably builds some muscle, right? Because no, that's not the case.
Lag. No excuses. When to train abs? Off season, on prep, or both?
I train abs and always did year round. Usually 5 days a week. What I try to do is I do it on all the days that I weight train. So even if I don't do it at the gym itself, I might do it at home. I try to do 5 days of abs a week. And I don't do 20 minutes worth of abs. I might do a set of crunches for 100 reps. And I might do a set of leg lifts for 100 reps. Obviously, it took me a long time to build up to be able to do that many in a row with good form. And before I was able to do that, I might have done 5 sets of 20 reps, just to get the reps in. And if you do that on a regular basis, and I do them while watching TV at night, so it's not like taking any time out of my day. I can relax on the floor and do it and rest between sets. And if you get in the habit of doing that, what you're going to notice is you're going to have good ab development, number one, but you're going to have abdominal control. And that's the key. A lot of guys on stage can't control their abdominal region because they don't train it. And they think, oh, if I train it, I'm going to get a big waist. You're not going to get a big waist by training your abs. Use body weight. And the more you work your abs and the more conditioned they become, and I'm talking about not conditioning in terms of leanness, conditioning in terms of, functionality, you're going to have, when you're on stage, you're going to be able to pull them in, you're going to be able to move them around, you're going to be able to flex them, you're going to show more detail in them. You never neglect any body part, because what happens is you create a weak link in the chain.
Glenn Hill, what does Dave think of the use of back offsets, quote unquote, and how is best to use them?
I don't know if I caught that. Back
offsets? Yeah, quote unquote.
Oh, back offsets. Like, okay. I'm assuming they're talking about, and I could be wrong on this, like after you hit your heaviest set, you might go back down and go a little lower and drop down and do lower weights. I don't have a problem when people do that because they want to maybe feel the muscle a little more. Sometimes guys, when they're bench pressing, it's hard to squeeze when you go in really heavy weight, and then you like to back down a set, maybe go down to 220. If let's say you're benching 405, you might drop down to 225 for the last set to kind of just squeeze out a couple more reps. I have no problem with that as long as you're not doing excessive amounts of those sets, because then what happens is you get overtrained, and then that could lead to muscle loss rather than muscle gain. So you don't want to overtrain the muscle, but I'm all for getting a couple squeezing reps in so that you can really feel that muscle contract using good form.
Oh, here's a fun one. Local question from CamCK5. What's the best gym in Cape Coral?
I wish I really had time to explore them all, but from what I've explored, I've trained at 4 gyms in Cape Coral. I've trained at Gulf Coast Fitness, which I liked. It was small. The one in Cape Coral Bucket was small. There's a better one in Fort Myers that I kind of liked a lot. And then I trained at 24-hour fitness for a while. Around the clock fitness. I trained there. And I kind of liked that gym. And then that's when the whole COVID came down and my kids were born, so I kind of just was training at the house. There's a brand new Crunch on Pine Island Road. That's where I go now. I think it's the best gym. It's big, it's spacious, huge ceilings, and they got everything you could possibly want equipment-wise in there, and the people seem to be real cool in there. So if I had to recommend a gym, that would be the gym I recommend now.
There you go. Oh, let's see. From Don Simmons, honest question. Why is there a loading phase for creatine? It's created naturally, and wouldn't excess just pass in our urine?
Creatine, if you eat a lot of, red meat or stuff that has creatine in it, you're going to have a certain level of creatine inside the muscle cell, okay? If they found that by taking extra exogenous creatine, that your body can load a lot more than it can get from the diet, which obviously increases endurance in the muscle because it buffers ATP. And it also has a volumizing effect by when the creatine enters the muscle cell, it pulls water with it, which makes the cells swell, get a better pump, you get better hydration to the muscle, which makes the muscle way more anabolic. They found that if you take, in other words, the ideal dosage seems to be about 5 grams per day. But if you do like 10 grams a day for the first 7 to 10 days, it seems like you fill the muscles up with creatine faster, okay? The problem is a lot of people get diarrhea if they take too much creatine at once, because what happens is you're mixing it in water, but it doesn't solubilize 100%. And then that creatine that doesn't go into solution sits in your intestinal tract and pulls fluid into your intestines, and a lot of people get diarrhea from it. So what my recommendation is, just take 5 grams once a day. I usually tell people put it right in your post-workout shake, and don't worry about loading. If it takes an extra 3 days or 4 days before your cells are maximally full of creatine, who cares? So what? There's no reason to have to jam it in. It's not like you're in a rush. Okay, so you're going to get the performance benefits as soon as you start taking it, and then probably it'll take 2 weeks before you're fully loaded, and then you're just basically topping off whatever you're using, during the day with the dose that you take for the day, the daily dose. And once again, you probably should cycle creatine on and off. If you're going to be in a dehydrated state, I would not take creatine because it's rough on the kidneys if you're not well hydrated. If you're hydrating perfectly, then you don't have to worry about it. If you do run high creatinine levels, you might want to take it out of your maybe your kidneys are not clearing it well enough. And if you have obviously compromised kidneys already, I wouldn't take creatine either.
Rob Scaff. What do you recommend to replenish your glycogen stores after leg day so you can do cardio the following day on a Stairmaster?
I always like liquid carbs to re-glycogenate as quickly as possible. So when I'm post-workout, I drink usually 40 to 50 grams of whey isolate, my Isolyze, of course, and I take like about 35 to 40 grams of carbs from my Fiberlyze product. Literally, I swear to you, I mix it in 4 ounces of water. People don't even know how I do it. I put 2 scoops of Isolyze, I put a scoop of Fiberlyze, and I mix it, and it mixes with my finger. I mean, that's how easy. And I just gulp it down, and then I don't even worry about it. I go home, I get my kids ready, I prepare dinner. I don't have to rush because I know I just put 50 grams of protein into my body, 40, 50 grams of protein, and I put 35, 40 grams of carbs into my body. I'm reglycogenating. I'm turning on protein synthesis machinery via mTOR, and I'm repairing muscle. And that's the best thing you can do. Now, if you're dieting for a competition or something like that, you might not want to do a fast carb like that, immediately after training. You might want to just go home and eat your meal. But for maximizing muscle gains and recovery from your workout, like what you seem to be talking about, that's the best combination.
Hardcore Dan, does eating every 3 hours have a difference between natural versus someone on gear? For what person is it more important?
Eating and supplementation is exactly the same, whether you're natural or you're on drugs. Drugs just make things work better. So it's more important to eat right, take your supplements, and the timing of your meals to be perfect when you're natural, because you can screw up a lot easier. Steroids kind of will override mistakes a little bit. Now, obviously, if you're perfect on your eating and your supplementation and you take steroids, you're going to get the best of both worlds and you're going to grow and get the best improvements. But diet and supplements never change.
Here's a question I can relate to, being a one scooper myself, from left, right, 73. Is 2 scoops of Fiberlyze necessary if someone already gets a good amount of fiber each day? I've been sticking with 1 scoop before bed, and I'm curious if the second serving would make a significant difference.
Hopefully the battery won't die on this camera, but...
I'll work on that.
Yeah, you work on that, Siler. Let me just tell you something about fiber. And I've said this a million times before. Psyllium is like a concentrated source of fiber, meaning that like 1 gram of psyllium is the equivalent of 8 grams of like oat bran. And oat bran, we know, is like the highest food source of soluble fiber. And you need about 16 to 18 grams of like psyllium per day, really, if you want to get enough, which would be an enormous amount of oat bran. So taking a fiber supplement is going to help you achieve your fiber goals a lot easier in a much smaller volume than if you had to go eat in your diet. Eating salads and broccoli and raw vegetables is not going to give you the soluble fiber you need. That's going to give you insoluble fiber, which you do need some of that too. And Fiberlyze does have some insoluble fiber in it, but the soluble fiber is the most important because that's the fiber that the gut bacteria can ferment. Okay, and when you feed those gut bacteria, they become healthy. And when they become healthy, they help control your blood sugar levels. They reduce inflammation in the body. The colon works, harder. So the musculature of the colon is good. The detoxification of your body is good because these soluble fiber sources of psyllium pull toxins out of your body efficiently. And, we know that fiber also binds up, LDL cholesterol molecules that get dumped into the intestinal tract via bile. So that pulls that out of the body. So you lower your LDL cholesterol levels. So you really can't replace it. Now you're using 1 serving, which is good. I personally like to take 2 servings of Fiberlyze a day, and I have a lot of my clients, especially the ones dieting, do that because it gives you a better regularity. Like, in other words, when I'm taking fiber for the 6 hours after I take the Fiberlyze, I'm going to the bathroom efficiently. I feel like my stomach is flat. I'm emptying my waist good. If I do it twice a day, I feel like that's working 24/7. If I only take it once a day, sometimes I don't feel that great in the morning or during the afternoon, depending on when I take my 1 dose. Because sometimes I forget. Everyone forgets, right? If I take my 2 dosages like at noon and then before bed around 11, 12 at night, I'm perfect. And the best thing I can tell you is try doing 2 doses. I think you're going to see better results. And if you are taking Fiberlyze also because of the fact that you do have high LDL cholesterol or maybe your blood sugars are running a little high, you definitely want to take 2 doses. You're going to get a much better result for that.
Shameless plug. When I went away for Tennessee for a business trip recently, did not take Fiberlyze with me. And let me tell you, if there is any product that you notice an immediate difference from once you take it again, oh man, night and day. Just truly cleaned out.
I got to give Tyler a little accolade. And I don't know if you guys have seen it yet, but there's a brand new Fiberlyze commercial starring Jimmy the Bull that Tyler and him put together when Jimmy was down here, and it's epically funny. So you definitely want to catch that.
Yes, it'll live on its own video on YouTube, and you will see it quite often, I'm sure, before many of our other videos coming up. Oh, time for another question or two. Let's see. From Bodybuilding and Wrestling. Hey, Dave, if you don't want to have a cheat meal, but you would want a higher day of carbs in that day, should you double up your normal carbs and also increase your fats and protein, or keep those the same for off-season and diet prep?
Depends what you're trying to accomplish,
I guess best way to double up your carbs if you want to for a day.
I mean, yeah, I would probably, if you're doubling your carbs because you're not maybe growing enough or maybe you're too flat, taking out other food and replacing it with the extra carbs is not going to accomplish what you want, because now your calories could potentially be lower. Like if you removed an equal amount of fat and added an equal amount of carbs, you probably would be actually lowering your calories, because fats have double the calories per gram that carbs do. So I would say keep your food exactly the way it is and just add the extra carbs on top.
All right, here's a practical question. Michael J. Morris, what's the average cost for an HRT program?
That varies from clinic to clinic. I know people that go to they're personal physicians, their urologist or their regular primary care doctor will prescribe testosterone to them. You don't really see that often, but people who have really, really low levels can get that done. If you go into an HRT clinic, you're probably looking at, $250, $300 a month or something like that. And, it varies depending on what you want. Some people want HCG, they want Arimidex, for anti-aromatase, they want testosterone, and they might want some injectable vitamins to go along with that. Or they might want to use some GHRP6 or something like that, to help release GH naturally, sermorelin. It depends on what you want. I've been working with TitanMedicalCenter.com for probably over 5 years now. And I don't think I've ever had one customer that was dissatisfied with their service there. I mean, they're really, really on top of it. You contact them, tell them I sent you or RxMuscle sent you, you get a nice discount. They'll always be there to answer your questions. The great thing is they send you for blood work. You'll do a Skype consult or Zoom consult with their physician. They'll go over all your blood work. They'll ask you what you're looking to accomplish, and then they put the protocol together to make you happy. And once again, it's based on what you financially can afford. If you can't afford a lot of stuff, you get the bare minimum. If you have the finances to get whatever you want, you can ask for their recommendations, and they'll really help you out. I love their glutathione. I love their Triimmune complex, which is glutathione, zinc, and what else is in there? It's vitamin C. I love their NAD Plus injectable. I've used that on and off a little bit. Probably the one I use the most regularly is the glutathione injectable, and I really believe that's awesome for your immune system. I feel great. I got COVID, but when I got over it, I didn't have any lingering effects, whatsoever. And I was using a ton of their products. I was using, my products. I'm big on nutritional supplements. I was taking a lot of anti-inflammatory, herbs like curcumin and quercetin. And, when you supplement your body correctly, your body recovers from being sick faster, and I didn't have that long COVID lingering, feeling like a lot of guys did. And I think I really chalk it up to putting the right supplementation into my program.
And we'll wrap things up with this interesting question from Lisa Brown 79. Bought two different Rely On (parentheses) blood glucose monitors from Walmart. They read 15 points different. Should I look into buying better brand or not? What's going on with that?
These blood sugar monitors do vary, and they're not 100% accurate, but the reason why they call them Rely On, they're reliable in the sense that if you're taking your blood sugar on the same monitor all the time, if it goes up or down, you can pretty much, see if you're too high or too low. Now, granted, let's say I tell you 90, fasting sugar of 90 is great, okay? Anything under that. If you come back at 110, okay, that's too high. If you're coming back at 95, I really wouldn't worry about it, because there's probably a plus or minus, 10 point, variation. As long as you're under 90 or under 95, you're probably normal. But I see people coming back with 110, 115. You could bet your bottom dollar. I don't care how many monitors you use. Your blood sugar is too high. So don't get so caught up with that number 90. If you're close to it, you're probably fine. If you're, once again, coming up super high, it's probably not the monitor's mistake. It's probably just that you have high blood sugar, you know, and that's what I tell people. I've had guys buy very expensive blood sugar monitors, and they were less accurate than the cheapies. So there's no reason to spend a ton of money on a blood sugar monitor. Get one and use that one all the time. Now, granted, when the battery starts dying on it, sometimes you can get some funky values. Don't forget that you do have to change that battery every so often.
And there you have it. That'll do it for us today for Ask Dave. Thanks as always for joining. You can follow our Instagram, type in RxMuscle. You'll find official_RxMuscle. The YouTube channel, I'm sure you're already subscribed to. Thanks as always, guys. We'll see you next time.